Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed. I am your host, Michael Valls, and I'm here in my office in the Bronx. Today is April 23rd. It's now 8 p.m. Now, you may be noticing, many people are used to that on Wednesdays, we normally have a round table. There's a panel discussion. That's the Liberty First Foundation. That would be Frank Johnson and Mike Marshall. Also Dal Grimm, Jan Rains, and myself. We would all come together on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. to be able to have a discussion about many of the things that are affecting all of us from a constitutional viewpoint, looking at what is constitutionally allowed and not allowed, and some of the issues that are affecting us, like the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, whether or not there are conflicts that we should be aware of and be talking about as a nation, as a people, and how it's affecting each and every one of us. But if you notice, today I'm here just by myself. Well, the simple answer to that is that's because tomorrow there is the NRA convention, and many of the members of the Liberty First Foundation will be going down there. That's tomorrow, starting Thursday. They'll be there Friday and Saturday, and they'll be covering the convention floor. They'll also be doing interviews during the convention with many of the people there. And so they had to work late tonight. They're going out first thing in the morning, and they'll be at the convention setting up tomorrow. Some of the other members have to work late. I mean, we all have to work 9 to 5, and sometimes we have to work even more than that because we're not rich. Wish we were, but we're not. And so that's why I don't have any of the other members here with me at this time. But knowing that people are used to being here on Wednesdays and having a live stream with me, with you, I decided I'm going to take the opportunity. I'm still going to do another live stream. So here I am. And I hope that you guys will enjoy it. We're going to have a couple things to talk about. Now, I'm not saying that I'm the equal of my peers, but I'm going to try my very best. We have a few things that I would want to talk about here. I have my camera over here to my right. So if you see me look to the left, that's where I have my other screen where I can see what I'm doing. There's a couple of things I wanted to talk about with you guys. I think they're kind of important issues. And I'm going to start off with something very simple. The breaking news today was that, oh, why is it doing it like that? No, that's not the way it's supposed to go. There we go. Okay. Senator Dick Durbin is going to be retiring. And I think that's kind of interesting news. Dick Durbin he's been in elected office. I don't know why my screen's showing that, but anyway, he's been in office. I mean, he's 80 years old. He's a Democrat. He's been in elected office for well over 30 years. It's about time. It's about time. I'm surprised. He should be taking Nancy Pelosi with him. Chuck Schumer should also be taking the hint at this point. In fact, about a third of Congress should be taking this hint, like Maxine Waters and Mitch McConnell. They need to go. They are so completely out of touch with the rest of America. And I think that's one of the things we forget. That's why we have a class of neo-nobles in our Congress and in our Senate at this time. They have been there so long, so detached. They don't live where we live. I was recently having this conversation, I think yesterday, with Matthew J. on the Matthew J. Show. I was interviewed there yesterday. And we were talking a little bit about the disconnect of many of these elected officials. They don't know how we live anymore because they don't live our life anymore. They live in, like, AOC as a great example. Before she got into Congress, she was massively in debt, over $100,000 in debt. She's working as a bartender, even though she had an economics degree, believe it or not. She gets into Congress, and 10 years later, we're looking at her having a net worth of about $17 million, depending on which source you're looking at. How did she get $17 million? She makes $174,000 a year. And so if she spent absolutely no money whatsoever, yes, she could have $1.7 million. If she was investing it, maybe she'd have $17 million. But that would mean she would have no money for food to pay off her college loans, which she doesn't want to pay off. She has an apartment that costs about $15,000 a month. She had a Tesla, an $80,000 car that she had bought. She has a private security detail that she pays for. She bought brand new clothes, and she flies out to Florida to talk to the donors of Kirsten Gillibrand on a regular basis. Okay, so she's spending money. Where did she get this $17 million in her net worth? How did she accumulate so much money? It's insane. So, and that gives you an idea. They're closed off. They're living entirely different lives than before they were members of Congress. And we're talking about AOC. That's only been 10 years. She doesn't pay attention to her constituents anymore. She's never seen in her district, walking down the street, going to the stores amongst her neighbors. She's not around the regular people anymore. No, she's hanging out with the DC circuit. She's isolated herself. She doesn't know what people are going through at this moment because of the policies that she supports and also the ones that she's trying to oppose. She has no idea what the impact is anymore. And the longer that they're in elected office, the less they have any idea of what's going on, until they get to the point where they're like Dick Durbin, who has no idea. Same thing with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. They lived in completely walled off, secure homes. They have no idea what the regular person lives with. Nancy Pelosi has interns that go and fill her refrigerator with nothing but, deluxe ice creams. She doesn't even go to the store. Neither does Chuck Schumer. They have staff that take care of that. They have no idea. They have no idea. One of the things that got me noticing that and kind of pissed me off a little bit, and I'll show you this, which goes to this same idea, is where is it? Here. Yes, I believe it's this one. Using a different system here. This is come on, bigger. Bear with me, guys. I'm trying to make this a little bit bigger. Okay, what you can see on the screen right now, this is Eric Swalwell, April 21st, 2 days ago. April 21st, Representative Swalwell posted that he wished that the chief priority of Donald Trump, the president of the United States, would be to lower the cost of eggs. To lower the cost of eggs. Now, I wanted to show you this and put this up in front for you. Let me see if I can make that better. There we go. And I wanted to show you that because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Eric Swalwell is talking about eggs. The price of eggs changed 2 months ago. The price of eggs went down 2 months ago, but Eric Swalwell has no idea. As you can see from his own Twitter account and his comment against Donald Trump, he thinks that people are still paying $12, $15 for eggs. He doesn't realize the price dropped by more than 50%, that we're back at the same level of a price of eggs back to July of 2022, when, of course, Joe Biden was in charge of the government, and he had no complaints when the price was going up from July of 2022 all the way until the end of the term of Joe Biden. You never heard Eric Swalwell say a single thing about the price of eggs as they doubled. He had nothing to say on the way the price went up. But now that the price has gone down, he doesn't even know, as I just showed you. This is the problem when you disconnect the members of our Congress, the members of our Senate, from the people themselves, when they're living the lives of neo-nobles and they believe that they are high on the hog, that they live on the top of the mountain, and they don't have to pay attention to the people below them. So I'm happy to see Dick Durbin retiring. and more of them should. I think no one should be there for more than 6 years. None of these members, but that isn't what we see happening. That's just not how that works. I wish it was, but that's not correct, which is kind of upsetting. It's kind of upsetting. But that's okay. You know, we make do where we can, but I do think it's important for people to know about these things. And please, if you disagree, if you have a different comment about that, let me know. But I don't think a lot of people noticed because the mainstream media didn't want to comment about Eric Swalwell and the fact that he's completely disconnected from his constituents. He has no idea what their lives are like, that he's still pushing an old message because someone might not know. And that's kind of sad. So yeah, we need to see more people like Dick Durbin retire. And that's Republicans and Democrats alike. We need people who are younger because they're more connected to what we're doing. Now, mind you, there is a downside to this because we saw that there's news out from what's his name? David Hogg, who you may remember because of the Florida mass shooting, the Stoneman shooting, and he was one of the survivors. He used that to create a career for himself, a mass shooting survivor, and he used that horror to turn himself into a political agent to try and remove the Second Amendment from everyone's life. And now he's a member of the DNC, the Democratic National Committee. He's one of their vice chairs, which I find absolutely amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing that he's a vice chair. I don't know how he accomplished that. But what I can say about that is if we take a look, come on, give me. No. Shift 2. No. Bear with me, folks. I'm not used to using this machine. No. Nope. Okay. Why is it not doing what I want it to do? All right, let's go back here. There. So what you can see right now is that David Hogg is now telling the rest of the Democratic Party that they need to primary the existing elected Democrats, the Democrats who are incumbents at this time. And the Democratic Party is losing their mind. They're like, oh my God, you can't primary Chuck Schumer. You can't primary Kirsten Gillibrand. What are you talking about? No. The Democrats are losing their mind on this. They think he's insane. Now, David Hogg is kind of saying, and this is really strange for me, because David Hogg is saying the same thing that I'm saying, and that's probably a first in our life. No, how do I get this back? Bear with me. I got to figure out how to work. I hate this machine. No. There we go. Nope. Okay, bear with me. This is an entirely different system that I'm using tonight from my normal one. So the buttons aren't doing what I want them to do. Okay, a little trial and error here. So please bear with me on that. But David Hogg is trying to upset the apple cart. He's trying to introduce more individuals like Hakeem Jeffries, more individuals like Rashida Tlaib, more individuals like Ilhan Omar or AOC. In other words, he wants more progressives in Congress. He wants more of the Democratic Socialists of America in Congress. Most Americans don't want that. Most Democrats don't want that. That's why they're a splinter of the entire Democratic Party. Of course, the elected Democrats, they want to maintain their power. They want to have the status quo, and that's what they've been fighting with the Donald Trump administration they've been trying to fight against the changes that Donald Trump is doing, trying to improve the nation. They just want the same status quo. They want a stalemate. They don't want the nation to improve. They don't want problems to be solved because our government, for decades now, hasn't solved anything. They have just let the problem continue to fester, and they kick the can down the road, and they never answer anything. They never resolve anything. They just keep throwing money at it. And this is the Democratic plan, especially in 2025, 2026. The plan from Democrats is throw money at the problem. Just keep throwing money at it and ignore it. Now, do I think that David Hogg has a good idea? No, I think he's doing this for his own best interest. I think he's trying to leverage power for himself. If he's the guy in charge of getting a bunch of Democrats elected, those Democrats owe him a favor, and therefore he'll get more power and more money. It's kind of like what Andrew Cuomo did. The reason why Andrew Cuomo is back in politics is when Andrew Cuomo resigned in disgrace from New York State. Well, he had $25 million in donations that he had received. He didn't have to give any of that money back. He didn't have to do anything. He got to keep $25 million that he could use towards any campaign he wanted to. And so he threw that money around to certain Democrats to keep in favor so that they would be on his side. Now, here he is. He's back in New York politics. You see Andrew Cuomo is running for mayor, and he has a nest egg, a war chest of, some are estimating, about $18 to $20 million. Well, that tells you right there, he spent some money on other Democrats to gain their favor, and now he's getting a bunch of endorsements from those very same Democrats to say, yes, Andrew Cuomo will be a great mayor. Remember, Andrew Cuomo was the guy who kicked out and wanted to kick out every conservative, every Republican, everyone who didn't agree with him. He wanted to kick them out of the state. That's what he said in 2014. That's authoritarian, and the Democrats are perfectly fine with that because it agrees with their politics. Andrew Cuomo was the guy who gave the orders that killed 16,000 people, and then he put together a cover-up of those orders, those deaths, so that he wouldn't get in trouble. And of course, there's the fact that he got investigated by the Attorney General of New York, a Democrat, Letitia James, who found that he committed 11 acts of sexual assault. Now, mind you, he got no charges for any of that because Andrew Cuomo had $25 million in a war chest. And so none of the Democrats wanted to get on his bad side. They wanted to protect him because they want part of that money. This is what David Hogg is doing. He wants to be the kingmaker. He wants to be the guy who has the handle on the hands on the purse strings of the Democratic National Committee's war chest, their election war chest. Therefore, every Democrat will have to come to David Hogg to be able to get some of that money. Therefore, they will be doing his bidding. He wants to be a kingmaker. He wants to be Andrew Cuomo on a national scale. Democrats should be terrified of this. They're currently fighting because they're saying, no, we want to keep the status quo. That isn't the thing that they should be worried about. They're disconnected. The elected Democrats out there, people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Maxine Waters, they're not thinking about what David Hogg is looking to do, which is to become a kingmaker. They're looking at it as they just want to keep things cushy for them. Jerry Nadler and the rest, they just want to maintain their lifestyle. They want to keep the same luxury. They're not, mind you, none of this has anything to do with constituents. No one is talking about making things better for the American people. The Democrats don't care about making things better for the American people. They're trying to make things better for themselves. That's it. They want to have their cushy job. They want to have the accolades, and they want to be the ones who are lauded after. They want to be able to have their tax breaks and to take their donor-paid vacations. They want all the perks, but they don't want to do the work. And they don't absolutely do not want to pay attention to you or me. And that's kind of sad. That's actually very sad, I think. Very troubling, in fact. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just misunderstanding that somehow. But that is the breaking news. Dick Durbin is out. David Hogg is trying to be kingmaker with the Democratic Party, and the mainstream elected Democrats just want to kick the can down the road and just keep everything like it's been for the last 2-3 decades. Even as our nation crumbles around them, they don't care. If there's anyone who disagrees with that, if there's anyone who thinks I'm misunderstanding that, please do let me know. But I do think we need to see our government change. We need younger people in Congress. I mean, there's only one person in Congress that's under the age of 30, only one. There's only a handful of people who are under the age of 40. The people who are in Congress right now, some of them, many of them, were in office before computers became personal computers, in the 1980s. I mean, Chuck Schumer has been around since what, the 70s? This is ridiculous. They have no idea what's going on anymore. And how can they govern wisely and live up to the expectations of their constituents if they never see their constituents, they never talk to their constituents, and they don't know how their constituents live? That's troubling to me. And they're fighting tooth and nail against anyone, that'd be Trump, that's David Hogg, that's everyone who's trying to change that scenario, to make members of Congress accountable, to make members of our government accountable. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misunderstanding that, but I thought that was something interesting about Dick Durbin leaving and the consequences of that. I mean, because when we look at this and we say, well, why does it matter? Because there's too much corruption. Like, here's an example of, let me see if I can get this fixed here. No. Yeah, there we go. So as an example, there's David Hogg. According to, this is coming from MSN, and this was about 2 months ago when David Hogg became a member of the Democratic National Committee, when he became their vice chairman. Someone said, hey, what is the net worth of David Hogg? The net worth of David Hogg is estimated roughly about $2 million. This guy, who doesn't believe in the Second Amendment, wants to be a kingmaker, wants to have greater control over the Democratic National Committee. What has he done? Why is he worth $2 million? He doesn't have the only company. He had a company that he was trying to create. It failed within the first year. Didn't work. He was going to make pillows to compete with My Pillow. Didn't work. He failed. That business went bankrupt. It's done, kaput. And that didn't make him any money. He wrote a book. Didn't seem to sell anything. No one was talking about the book. It wasn't a bestseller. What has he done? He's gotten money from donations. That's what he's done. He's been able money from people who hate guns. That's what he's done. And that's where his wealth apparently seems to come from being a politician who just denies people their rights. That's it. And I think that's pretty sad. So that's the catch-22 of getting younger people in office. But that just means we need to be more careful about who we put into elected office. At least that's what I think. We just need to make sure we're putting the right people into elected office. And when I say the right people, I mean that we look at these individuals and look at what do they offer. What is their plan? Again, I'll go back to the Democratic Party. What's their plan right now? We know what the plan is for President Trump. He's going to shrink the government, and he's trying to do so. He's trying to limit the spending of the United States government, more or less. And he's going through that process right now. He's firing people. He's closing down the Department of Education. He's got RFK trying to make America healthy again. We see his agenda. We have seen he's trying to create peace in the Ukraine. He's trying to get back the last American that is being held by Hamas, the terrorist organization. The last living American. He's trying to get him back home. We know that. He's trying to keep Iran under the thumb of America, or at least calm, to try and reduce the amount of Middle East tensions and warfare there. He's trying to be a peacemaker and looking at long-term growth for the United States to reignite manufacturing in the United States and self-sufficiency in the United States, which is a hard thing to do when so many people have gotten accustomed to living in luxury and not having to work hard for anything and just not having to make or know how to make anything. So he's trying to change all that. We know what the Trump agenda is. And when we look at the Democrats, what's their agenda? I know Bernie Sanders and AOC are running around and they're telling all the young people, hey, you deserve more free stuff. But free stuff isn't free. It comes from somewhere. It costs something. You know, they're saying, oh, well, we have to fix the world because of climate change, as they ride from event to event in a private jet that gives off more carbon dioxide gases, more greenhouse gases than probably any one of their districts. Each time they fly that thing, they're creating more pollution than their constituents are able to reduce. But yet you have to make the change. You have to suffer the quality of life. You don't get to go on a plane. You definitely don't get to be in first class. You don't get to have a private jet waiting to just escort you from place to place to place. But Bernie Sanders and AOC do. It doesn't matter that they're creating more pollution. It's a matter because they're the leaders. Again, this is the neo-noble idea of some of the Democrats, some of the elected leadership. They're not the same as us. They have different lives. They have different privileges, and you have none. That's very upsetting. So we know Bernie Sanders, AOC, they want more privilege. They want more power, and they're trying to gain that. They're gaslighting a lot of Democrats who are disenfranchised, who are looking for something, because the old guard of Democrats have lied to them, and they've been caught lying to them over and over and over again. I mean, we see about Elizabeth Warren was just this week was being challenged because she lied to the American people and kept on telling everyone, no, Joe Biden is sharp as a tack. She had met Joe Biden. She talked with Joe Biden, and he's sharp as a tack. Now we know he wasn't sharp as a tack in 2019, and it only got worse while he was in the White House. It only got worse, and she never told anyone. We see lie after lie has been exposed from the Biden administration. Democrats feel terrible. They didn't get a chance to pick their presidential candidate. They didn't get a vote. They were told who they were going to vote for. It was going to be Joe Biden. They didn't have a primary for him. Not really. They kicked out RFK Jr. to make sure that he wouldn't be a challenger. They kept all the funding away. They told all the donors that they would be punished if they gave any money to Marianne Williamson. They closed the doors and said, no, you've got Joe Biden and that's your only choice. And then when Joe Biden imploded, they turned around and said, well, now you get Kamala Harris because she's the only one who can access all the money that's already been donated to the 2024 campaign. It was only Kamala Harris. So you get Kamala Harris. You don't get to vote. You don't get a choice, but you have to vote for her. That's what Democrats got. So I can understand why they are looking for somebody, anybody to provide them with leadership. And that's where AOC and Bernie Sanders come in taking advantage of that emotional turmoil amongst many Democrats right now. It's kind of sad. And that's also what David Hogg is doing, taking advantage of this emotional turmoil. It's not the best thing for America, though. It's not even close. It's a problem. I think it's a pretty big problem if you ask me. But I mean, you may disagree with me, but I think it's a pretty big problem. Fair enough. Now, when we talk about Donald Trump, and I was saying he's trying to set up America to be self-sufficient, to be able to support itself. There are bumps in that road. It's not as efficient as we would like it to be. Again, folks, by the way, I should stop before I go further. I know this is different format than what many of you were looking for with the Wednesday roundtable, the panel discussion. But if you are watching the program, please like, share, and subscribe. Can't ask for more than that. Like, share, subscribe. It makes a massive difference. It allows us to be able to get more guests onto the program, to be able to go to more events to cover them for you, to be able to help and well, it just helps everything, to be honest. It's just very helpful. So I would hope you would consider that because it really does make a big difference. And I would really, really appreciate that. That being said, okay. And of course, you can always send in a chat, a super chat, a Rumble rant. If you agree, disagree, however you may feel about any of the things that we're talking about tonight, I'm always happy to hear your voice. I'm doing it all by myself. This is a last minute thing. So that's part of the reason why I'm not as prepped as I usually am, is because I didn't know we weren't going to have anyone else until late into this evening. And so I kind of put it all together in the last hour or so. That being said, let me go on. So Donald Trump is trying to make America more self-sufficient. That's a good thing. Got to be happy with that. But it's a bumpy road. And there's been a lot of problems with that. As you may recall, we've had what happened most recently. China sent back the Boeing planes. We had a bunch of planes and China sent them all back and said, nope, take them back. That's obviously going to have impact on the earnings for Boeing, and it's going to have an impact for the American economy. And that's because of the tariffs between the United States and China. There's a big war going on right now, 145% tariffs. Eventually, China will break because China needs America to buy their goods more than anything else. They can't survive without the American consumer. They can't survive without the American dollar. They need us more than we need them. But that is a process that takes some time, and that means some pain. Once this can be worked out, and it will one way or the other. Either Trump will win and China will back down, or at some point Trump will capitulate if the public turn against him, if they don't recognize what he is looking to do long term. Because the whole point of tariffs, and we've talked about this many times on this program and others, that the whole point of the tariff is to cause people to buy American, to create the goods in America rather than getting them from overseas, to build it here, build it with better quality so that it's worth more, it will last longer, and therefore you don't have to buy it from somewhere else, helping China's economy or India's economy or Vietnam's economy, rather than boosting their economy for building things that we can build here in the United States. Build it here instead. And I think that's important because we need the ability to make more planes, more tanks, more defensive weapons, and everything else. We need to be able to make our medicines in America again and make them cheap enough that American citizens can actually purchase them. We need to be able to make cars cheap enough that people can afford them once again. We need to be able to make everything that we use every day rather than rely on someone else. Because as we can see, when we rely on China, and I know most people aren't thinking of it this way, but if we're relying on China to give us to process our foods, to make our planes, to make our everything, if they're making everything for us, if they ever get angry with us, the more dependent we are for them to make it, they can always just stop making stuff, and then we suffer. If we don't have the ability to make it for ourselves, we suffer. This is kind of like the mirror of what we're doing to Europe. Europe can't defend itself, but the United States defends Europe. And Europe is pissed off because they want America to go in and take care of the Ukraine for them. But we said under Trump, we're saying, no, we don't want to have a never-ending war on our back. Not another one. We don't want that. We want to see peace. And we're willing to make the deals to get that peace. We're willing to work with Putin and Zelensky to get their nations to have peace. And Europe isn't very happy about that because it means Russia's going to win, which they're going to win no matter what. That's just a matter of time. So Europe, though, has no military. They've already admitted, France has already said so, Germany has said so, England has said so, that they don't have the ability to put in an army into the Ukraine, even if they wanted to. Not to defend the Ukraine, nor to do an offensive attack. They don't have the capability. They don't have the soldiers, the technology. They don't have the weapons or the ammo. They can't fight a war. They can't even fight a defensive war. They need the United States. So no matter what they think about it, they have to do what America says. They have no choice. In much the same way, that's the reason why Donald Trump doesn't want America dependent on China, because they can do what we have done to Europe. Just say, yeah, we don't agree. Cut off the spigot. Just stop. If we're not going to fund the Ukraine, there is no one who's going to fund the Ukraine. No one else can give them the weapons and the ammo that we can provide that they need. If we don't do it, no one else can. Well, if China isn't making it, no one else at the moment is. And Trump's trying to change that. It is a very bumpy road. I admit that, and I agree with that. It is a very bumpy road. And we are seeing that, and that's why we're seeing the economy go back and forth. But I want people to also understand, as bumpy as that is, as tumultuous as that is, it isn't something to panic over. Here it is. Because I know it was just a couple of weeks ago, and this isn't like Eric Swalwell, but I'm sure you probably remember a couple of weeks ago, you were being told by Democrats left and right and the mainstream media that everything's going to just end. You're going to die. And the economy was going to go bankrupt. Look at this. I believe I can get this. So it was just a little while ago. So here we are. And it was on April 7th that the market bottomed out. And you were told from April 2nd to April 7th that you were going to lose everything. All of your retirement funds, your IRAs, your 401ks, they were all worthless. You're going to be bankrupt, that Donald Trump was going to bankrupt you and you would have nothing left over. And just like Eric Swalwell, they stopped paying attention. They stopped talking about the problem. Why? Because the market bounced back. Because you hadn't actually lost anything unless you actually sold something. And most people didn't. And they know that. They know most people didn't sell. And the economy didn't go into a depression. We didn't suddenly lose everything. People weren't jumping out of windows like 1929, which we were told, it's 1929 all over again. No, it never was. It never was. But it was about the fear. It was about being afraid. And the only person that they wanted you to turn to was, of course, the Democrats. They used the fear to make you obey them. Oh, Donald Trump's so bad, you have to talk to Democrats. You're going to lose everything. Go talk to a Democrat. But if you didn't do that, if you realized what the long-term benefit was going to be, you'd probably be fine. If you didn't sell, you've recovered massively. In fact, if you bought into the dip, you've made more money, which is what most of the rich people did do. They didn't actually panic. They didn't sell anything. They bought more. I used to be a stockbroker. That's what I was telling my clients back in the day. I've been through more than one market crash. When the market crashes like that because of feelings, because of fear mongering, I tell my clients, hey, get all the loose cash you got. We're going to go buy everything. Why? Because it's all coming back. It's going to bounce back because nothing changed. Nothing changed. People are still going to buy the same things they're buying. Nothing actually changed. It's the feeling that changed. That's what really changed. All right. Now, I'm going through a couple of these things, and you may want to ask yourself, but is this all constitutional? Is it constitutional for David Hogg? Is it constitutional for David Hogg to go out there and use candidates to be able to give himself power? Sadly, yes, it is. Is it constitutional for the Democratic Party to stagnate the entire economy, to just do nothing but allow the country to crumble because they want to maintain their power? Sadly, yes, it is. Is it constitutional for people to terrify you by saying that everything's going to fail, that the economy is dead and you're going to be in a depression, and it's all the Republicans' fault, it's MAGA's fault, it's Orange Man bad? Is that legal is that constitutional for people to be able to do that in elected office? Yes, it is. But we have a response to that, which is also in the Constitution. You can vote these people out of power. Just like you can boycott any company. Bud Light was nearly bankrupted because of the policies and the policies that they had in place, what they were trying to push onto the American people, an ideology, a lifestyle that the American people didn't want. And so we could fight against it. No problem. People boycotted them. We found another way. We found different products. We went on with our lives, just minus Bud Light. Guess what? Bud Light finally figured out that, well, they made a bad decision and they changed. And so they've tried to readapt, but life went on. We could do the same thing with our politicians. We don't have to keep Chuck Schumer. We don't have to keep Nancy Pelosi or Mitch McConnell for that point, or Maxine Waters. We don't need to keep them in office. Jerry Nadler. We don't need them to be there for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. We can vote them out. They're not effective. They're not efficient. We can vote them out. They don't need to stay in elected office. You have that power. That's why they're trying to take away the right to vote. And I don't mean like, oh, it's going to be back in the old South. Not like that kind of take away your vote. No. They're going to take away your right to vote by giving it to illegal aliens. We already heard from Kamala Harris in 2024, October 2024, Kamala Harris went into Philadelphia. She talked to ABC News, the local ABC News affiliate in Philadelphia, and she told them that, yes, they want open borders. She's a fan of open borders, that she supports open borders along with the rest of the Democratic Party because they want illegal aliens to be able to come into the nation and then give them a path to citizenship, which would be open-ended. If the border is open and there's always more illegal aliens coming into America, they would all be able to suddenly become American citizens, one after the other. But that would only be possible as long as Democrats were in control. And so Democrats would have millions, more than enough people to be able to vote in elections because they were enslaved to Democratic Party at that point, that they would always have to vote Democrat out of their own personal self-interest. So your vote and my vote would no longer matter because they had the illegal alien vote. And that would be 8 to 10, maybe 14, or depending on which number you go by, could be as many as 21 million votes. That's more than enough to win any presidential election. That's more than enough votes to win any statewide election, any local election. Democrats would be able to control any and every aspect of American life. They could win every elected seat across the country for decades. That's the plan. That was the plan that Kamala Harris revealed to us in October of 2024 on ABC News in Philadelphia. That's what we're fighting against. And I find it scary. I find it scary and upsetting. Let's see. John has joined us. John Lashcombe. Thank you, John. John says, no sound bites. On the radio today on the way into work, I listened to a little article that stated Kathy Hochul is up in the polls from where she was 6 months ago. What do you think? Kathy Hochul needs more than being up in polls a little bit. I mean, she's been down in the 30s. She's been hovering around the 40 percentile in polls, depending on who's taking the poll and when they take that poll. But to be able to be sure that she would win in New York politics, we're talking about Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York. For her to be sure that she could win, she needs to be above 50%. She needs to be closer to 60% in the polling. She's nowhere near that. Nowhere near that. No matter who's taking the poll, no matter how they engineer the poll, there's no poll that's been done, even when it's only amongst Democrats, that puts her support anywhere close to 50%, let alone 60%. So she has a long way to go. She's going to be challenged for the election. And Letitia James was her biggest competition, Kathy Hochul, for the Democratic nomination for governor. She's now out. Letitia James is out because she committed acts of fraud, very much like what she accused Donald Trump of. And because of that, she's no longer viable. Democrats are running away from Letitia James because she is guilty. There's no question about that. No one's denying she's guilty. She fraudulently filled out mortgage documents last year, and that's not in question. That is a fact. She lied. She said she was a resident of Virginia. That was her primary residence. She can't be AG of New York. She can't be elected in New York and at the same time be a resident of Virginia. Can't be done. That means she lied. And therefore, she can't be AG, which is why every Democrat's running away, because she is guilty. The only question now is, what's the punishment? But she is guilty. And she has to suffer some punishment, which means that she can't be governor, because that will be following her. So thank you for the question, John. I appreciate that. I always look forward to people's questions anytime they ask them. So I hope everyone's enjoying that. By the way, if you're finding this interesting, folks, again, this was all last minute. I'm putting it all together last minute in the last hour before I came on. So I hope you don't mind if it's a little scattershot. I'm trying to convey a lot of information in the last minute because the panel wasn't able to get together today, but they will be covering the NRA convention starting tomorrow. So there is that to look forward to. And I'm getting a whole bunch of messages right now. Bear with me, folks. What's that? No. Okay. Thank you, folks. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting a bunch of notifications. So I was trying to see if someone trying to jump onto the program. Who knows? All right. So we talked a little bit about the tariffs, what the outcome is expected of that. We talked a little bit about what's going on with the IRAs and the doom and gloom, the fear mongering that you've been suffering through for the almost 100 days of the Trump administration so far have over and over again proven themselves to not be true, to not be real. And that's something you got to keep in mind. There's a lot of fear mongering that's being used. Same thing David Hogg is doing right now. The fear is, oh, Democrats are all too old, so they don't understand, so we have to replace them all with progressives. Not the best person, not the best Democrat, but with progressives, because he wants to be a kingmaker. Again, he's using fear and he's using emotion to take advantage of people. And that's kind of sad. Now, I wanted to, and I told you about Eric Swalwell, who's completely out of touch. And I showed you his tweet on April 21st of this year saying that, hey, eggs cost too much and they're the exact same price as they were under Joe Biden before they started doubling in price. But let me go further. So we've been hearing that Donald Trump has been dealing with Harvard and colleges a lot. And I thought this was kind of interesting. Is it constitutional, the fight that Donald Trump and the Trump administration are having with Harvard University right now? Harvard is trying to say that this is about free speech. And the mainstream news media is screaming, it's about free speech. Harvard should, we're talking specifically about the fact that Donald Trump has restricted $2 billion worth of federal taxpayer money from Harvard. He wanted Harvard to guarantee freedom of speech and to get rid of DEI. Harvard said no. And so Trump said, fine, then you don't get $2.2 million of taxpayer money. The federal government will not give you any money. And I've heard some people say it's as much as when you look at all the funding that goes into Harvard from the federal government, it could be as much as $9 billion. Okay, so it's somewhere between $2 and $9 billion that Harvard isn't getting. But as I discussed on Sunday, and as I discussed yesterday when I was talking with Matthew J., Harvard has $52 billion in assets. $52 billion. In 2024 alone, Harvard made $2.5 billion off of those assets. They're not going broke. Harvard is nowhere near being bankrupt. They're profitable, highly, highly profitable. So they don't need $2.2 billion of taxpayer money. In fact, they don't need any money from the government. They can pay for everything on their own. They don't want to. They're greedy. And they want your money. Now, their answer is, we don't have to. We want the money, but we don't want any strings attached to it. We don't want to take orders from the federal government, which is kind of funny because they did under the Biden administration, but they don't under the Trump administration. But fine. And they're saying they're a private company, Harvard University, and so they don't have to obey Donald Trump or the United States government. And they're right. They're a private company. They don't need to. So that means they can accept private market risk. What does that mean? Like any other business, they don't get money from the government. Harvard will either make money or go bankrupt on their own. The government owes them nothing. The government gives them nothing. The bodega downstairs from where I am right now gets $0 from the federal government. They will make money or go bankrupt because they're good at doing business. Same thing for Harvard. Either you can do well at business or you don't. If you don't want the $2.2 billion, it's not because, but you're stopping free speech. And this is Glenn Greenwald's silly idea. But it's killing free speech. No, it's not. They have $52 billion. They can make ads on any social media or any media outlet that they want. They have a TV station, their own radio station. They have their own newspaper that they can market out there. They have more than enough means, more than capable of being able to succeed. They don't need the government. They don't need the public's taxpayer money. We can take that $2.2 billion and we can feed hungry children. We can house veterans and the homeless. We can help people with that $2.2 billion that Harvard doesn't need. They just want it. They don't need it. Harvard isn't going to close because the federal government isn't giving them money. Not even close to it. They're nowhere near going bankrupt. So it's greed. It's only greed. And they're perfectly capable of being able to get, the CEO can go on to any news program. They can go and talk to any news media agency in the world at any time, and they will get an interview. They will get their messaging out. They have lost zero free speech. Zero. So should the federal government cut off the funding? Yes. And as I said to Matthew J. yesterday, which you can see that interview on my channel, I said to him, you know what? Every college should have that. The federal government, our taxpayer dollars should not be used to fund any college in America. None of them. They will either succeed or they will fail on their own. They don't need taxpayer money, and we shouldn't give it to them, especially when they're already profitable, especially because they're making money. No. You don't need our money. Stop. But we'll see about that. But there is some news that came out just before the show today, the 23rd. Let me bring that up on the screen for you guys, because I think it's kind of important, and it plays into what's been going on with Harvard right now. And let me make it a little bit bigger. And here we go. So you can see it's Trump signs executive order to influence college accreditations. I think this is pretty important. And let me read this off real quick. So President Trump, Wednesday night, tonight, signed an executive order aiming to change the college accreditation process so that colleges are accredited based on results. I think this is critical. I'm going to get back to it. With the president wondering aloud about looking into the math capabilities of students, who cares? That's not important. Going on. The president also signed an order to enforce laws on the books requiring universities to disclose where do they get their money if it's coming from foreign countries, that you have to disclose that. So those are two big things. I'm just going to stop right there with that. And so those two things I think are really important. And let me be clear about this. The reason why they're important is this is part of the whole same question. If these colleges are getting money from the federal government in any way, shape, or form, then there's certain things they should be doing for it. Just the same way that when these colleges, Harvard, Columbia, UCLA, Stanford, when they get donations from their alumni and they name a library or a football field or new housing, they name it after their alumni for all the money. There are strings attached to that. Well, I think the strings should be something that benefits the public. And I think this is great that Trump is now saying that if you have a college and you want that college to be recognized as credible, that you do a good job, that your job is to educate the youth and prepare them for the future in various fields. You are making them more capable and more functional in our society, which is a great thing. And Trump saying, well, great. And your accreditation isn't going to be based on how many people have written books, how many professors have written a book that someone may or may not have ever read. That's not accreditation. To say that we have a bunch of people who have won awards in academics isn't accreditation. The only thing that should be valuable for a college is to say, I taught John how to make vehicles or make rockets. John has a job now and he works for NASA or he works for GM and he makes cars or he makes rockets. He's successful. I taught Sue how to be a farmer. Sue is now a successful farmer. Taught Bill how to taught him about biology. Bill is now an immunobiologist. He's helping to cure cancer. That's a success record. That's you doing something that actually works. But if you say, I taught Carol how to lesbian interpretive dance, which is something you can get a degree in lesbian interpretive dance, that's useless. No one cares. That doesn't help Carol. That doesn't help society. It doesn't do anything. And Carol is going to be like AOC and going to be working at a bar somewhere with a degree, and no one's going to care because the degree is worthless, meaningless. Of course, Carol will be $100,000 in debt, but she got nothing for it other than to be able to say, but I went to Harvard, I went to Columbia or Stanford. I've got a degree that says I went there and I know more about lesbian interpretive dance than anyone else around. Fantastic. No one cares. That won't help you make a burger. That won't help you drive a car. That's not going to help man reach the moon or Mars. It's not going to help anyone do anything. No one cares. No one cares. Can't even write a good book about that. It's useless. It is a useless feature. And that's what our colleges are based on right now. The only way that college students really are successful now is they learn something like Africana Studies, which is American Africana Studies. Fantastic. Which is a good side note. And they know all about this. And then where did they use that? Nowhere. No one cares. It's not useful. You get 1 month out the year to say, I've got a degree in Africana Studies. Yay! I know about Black history. Great. I'm happy for you. That's a good thing. But that's not a career. That's not a job. That's not something that's going to help society move forward. It's great for us to remember our past. Yes. But that's not going to improve the quality of life for the world. It's not going to improve the quality of life, the GDP of the United States. So, and the only choice you have at that point is to become a teacher, to go to a university and teach a bunch of other kids about Africana Studies. Same thing with the lesbian interpretive dance. No, the only choice you have now is to go and teach other kids how to do lesbian interpretive dance, to get their degrees in that same useless arena. The only thing it's good for is creating more teachers to teach more people that same useless skill, because it's not helpful. It doesn't do anything. And so, yes, I think that it's a great idea from President Trump to say, no, you're judged by the results. Are your students able to get jobs in the fields that they studied in? I don't mean, they studied AOC. She had an economics degree and she was working as a bartender. Well, Barnard College can't say, well, we were very successful because AOC had a job. Yes, as a bartender. She doesn't need a degree to be a bartender. She doesn't need any kind of college education to be a bartender. Okay. Doesn't mean you can't be. And I know I was a bartender in college. I know many other people who've been bartenders and they go to college. They have college degrees. I'm not saying you can't. I'm not saying it's a bad thing or a good thing. But I am saying that it has no connection to your degree. Every single person I know who is a bartender and went to college or got a degree, bartending had nothing to do with it. Bartending made the money. Their degree was their degree. And amazingly, I know many people who have master's degrees and they're bartenders and they can't work. There is no job for them to go to. Their degree is useless. That's why they remain bartenders. They got out of college and they stayed as a bartender. They kept bartending. Why? Because they couldn't use their degree for anything in the real world. It was a useless degree. Of course, they're $60,000, $100,000 in debt. Too late. They learn too late that that degree is useless. And bartending, that's making them all their money. I think that's kind of interesting. By the way, oops, hang on a second. And it seems that Joanna agrees with me. Thank you for joining us as well. As John, Joanna, thank you for joining us as well. And I thank you for your comment because she seems to agree with me on this. And I think that's kind of important. So I think this is something that we're not hearing enough about. And I think this is a good thing. Now, obviously, people like Harvard and Columbia, UCLA, Stanford, Binghamton University, Cornell University, colleges across this country, they're going to be pissed off because they can't succeed in this. If we are judging accreditation by the success of the students, they all fail. Not one of them would be accredited. The majority of people who graduate from college never work in the field that they went to college for. Not even close. The majority of people who go to college and get a degree don't work in white-collar jobs. So they have failed in almost every single aspect. I think that's, we need to change this and say, we need accreditation to show success. So if you, Harvard, want to have all these kids learn how to, one of the big degrees they can get is lesbian interpretive dance or Africana studies, fantastic. Make sure they get a job the day they get out. If that means that they have to be a librarian or they open up their own dance studio, that's fine. But they better get a job that has something to do with the degree they got. Because otherwise, you have just wasted, you have abused that student. You have used them to make money for yourself, and you gave them nothing back. You wasted their time. Nowadays, 6 years of their life have been wasted to get this degree that will get them nothing, that does nothing to prepare them for the future. It does nothing to help them. That's kind of upsetting. Now, maybe I'm wrong, and I know Joanna thinks that I'm right, and I know there's a bunch of people who are watching this right now. Maybe you think I'm correct, or maybe you don't. I'd like to hear your voice. Tell me what you think about this, because I don't know. But I think I'm pretty close on this. I'm pretty sure that Trump is on the right track here. And by the way, we're not giving them federal money. You don't get to have federal money to waste students' time to teach them useless skills that will never get them advanced. Now, mind you, I know there's going to be some art major out there that is going to come up to me, Mike, but Mike, you got to be able to study art. I mean, you have to understand the difference between a Picasso and a Monet. You have to understand the value of art. And I do not disagree. A society that doesn't have art dies. So I get that. But that should be an option for the student. Maybe now, here I am, I'm 57 years old. If I went to college now, maybe I want to study art history. Maybe I want to learn about music history so that I understand the culture and I can pass that on now that I'm closer to retirement than I am to starting my life. Now that I don't have them, but if I had grandkids, if I had a family, I'd probably be looking at grandkids now rather than starting my family. So when I'm 20, the degree I want to have and the degree that Harvard and the colleges should be giving me is something that would allow me to build a family, to build a foundation for my life. And then later in my life, if I want to go back and I just want to expand my mind, if I want knowledge for knowledge's sake, I can go back and do that. Now, if someone at 20 says, no, but I just want to learn about art history now, that's fine. They could do that. That's, again, it's a free system. It's freedom. You can choose, but at least you know, oh, yeah, if I learn art history, if I learn lesbian interpretive dance, if I learn Africana studies, I'm not getting a job doing this. That's $100,000 in 4 to 6 years of my life I'm throwing away. You can always make that choice. No one should take that away from you. But now you understand, because what they're trying to get you into is, okay, you want to go into engineering, you want to go into math and science, you want to become a teacher, English, you want to be able to have skilled labor, you want to be a machinist, you want to be a plumber, an electrician. Those are valuable jobs that are absolutely essential to our society that we need and are in high demand. They could teach you that. But you can always say, no. I know those are the jobs that are necessary. I want the job that isn't. That's a choice. So I'm not telling Harvard or any of the colleges, get rid of your liberal arts, the entire liberal arts division of your college. No. I'm just telling you, be honest with the students that, you're a philosopher. That's not going to do anything for you. You have a philosophy degree. It's fantastic. So does every lawyer. You know what philosophy is? You know what people use philosophy? Only 2 types of people get a philosophy degree. Only 2. Politicians and lawyers. That's it. No one else gets a degree in politics or poli-sci. No one does that. Just politicians and lawyers. No one else needs it. Why? It's useless. Mind you, I love Nietzsche. I think it's fantastic. I loved learning about Aristotle. I had great debates about Nicholas of Cusa and Nicholas Oram. I loved those conversations that I had and debating with my professor, talking about whether or not Machiavelli would have been able to access and whether or not he would have been more into post-Platonic thought or more into Aristotelian thought. That which one would have had more of an influence on his writings and his thought. That was a great conversation that I got to have with an accredited teacher, a teacher who was a tenured professor, the only 200 level and above professor in all of Rutgers University. And I was a 100 level, 200 level student who was fighting with this tenured PhD on this subject. I enjoyed that. That was fantastic. But you know what? In the real world, absolutely useless. Nobody knows who Nicholas of Cusa is. No one cares. No one cares whether or not Machiavelli was influenced by post-Platonic thought. In fact, most people don't even know who Plotinus was. And no one cares if he was influenced by Aristotelian thought. No one cares. No one cares. It doesn't change the cost of tea in China. Does not. So at least we should have that awareness. So again, I don't know. King of Swamp says, lesbian interpretive dance. Laughed my ass off. Yeah, well, it exists. Let's see. And John says, we should not be giving money to Harvard, at least not in the $2 billion range. I say none at all. And again, not just to Harvard. I mean, any college. But again, so this is news that came out today that, again, Trump is saying we're going to tie accreditation to success. And I've just explained why I think that is absolutely valuable, why I think that's useful, why I think that's the right thing to do. And Democrats will tell you it's evil. The news media is going to tell you that that's some kind of hellish decision that will destroy the future of America. You will hear the colleges and the college professors come out and say that that's going to destroy education going forward. No, it's not. It's going to destroy the pay schedule that they have right now. It's going to change the balance of power in academia. It's going to force them to be accountable in a way that they've never had to deal with before, or at least not in the last, 100 years, that they haven't had to worry about being accountable for, that they have to actually pay attention and serve the students rather than the students just being a meal check, a paycheck. That's what they've been doing. But now they're going to have to do more. So they're going to tell you, this is horrible. This is the worst thing ever. Oh my God, this is a terrible thing. And when they tell you that, I will say to you, ask each and every one of those professors, okay, great. What kind of job do you get when you are an Africana studies major? When you have a PhD in Africana studies? When you have a master's degree in lesbian interpretive dance, what kind of career are you going to get? If you don't want to be a politician or a lawyer, what do you get with a BA in, or rather a BS in in philosophy? What are you going to do? What career path do you have with those? And I just picked 3, but what's your career path? Because there isn't one. And they won't have an answer. They're going to look at you and they're going to go, but it's important. I'm not saying it's not valuable. I'm just saying that that's not a career path. So you should not be rated highly if that's the only thing you can offer your students, when you're not telling them that at the end of the day, $100,000, $200,000 later, they will get nothing out of this. That the very best thing they could possibly hope for is they would have to become a PhD in lesbian interpretive dance, that they have to have a PhD in Africana studies, they have to have a PhD in philosophy, so that they can then become a tenured professor to teach the next generation of kids the same thing that they learned and advance nothing. That's it. That's like a cancer cell. Anyway. So I wanted to address that because I thought that was annoying. I truly did. But, Orange Man bad. How dare there be accountability in colleges because Orange Man bad. How dare we expect colleges to do anything except take our public money, which is, by the way, inflationary, the $2 billion that we give a year to Harvard University that doesn't need it, that is independently wealthy. Well, we're giving them money. And by the way, every time we have to print that money, and that money means inflation. Every time we print another dollar, that's inflation. That means poor people become more poor. The middle class become the poor, and the poor become very poor. That's what inflation does. And that's what happens when you give colleges that don't need the money, and you give them money. Money they don't need, just so that they could have more money. It's not worth it. But we're going to be told, Trump is evil. You don't understand, Mike. Trump is evil. No, he's not. No, he's not. You don't have to like him. You don't have to like the way he does things. That doesn't mean that he's wrong. People have gotten this misunderstanding that somehow we must like the president for him to be an effective president. No, not at all. We've had presidents who are horrible human beings, many of them. Probably half the presidents that we have had are not pleasant people. They're not nice people. They don't need to be. The job has nothing to do with being nice or being pleasant or being liked. That's not part of the job. It's effective and efficient, not likable. That's not in there. That's not in the job description. But you're going to hear that Trump is very evil right now because there's some are saying 900,000 people got an email. I talked a little bit about this on Sunday, that 900,000 people got an email that said, oh my God, we're going to deport you. And American citizens got this. Some are saying thousands, if not tens of thousands of American citizens got a notification from the Trump administration saying that they will be deported. And by the way, that is a lie. Now, I already covered this on Sunday, but some of my audience doesn't, the audience on Wednesday isn't always the audience on Sunday. So let me be very clear. The email was sent out to known illegal aliens, individuals who have been stopped by the government, either at the border or since, that they have identified these individuals as illegal aliens, people who should not be in America. And they came to us when maybe they were getting food, or they were getting some kind of financial aid from the government, and they had to give a contact, an email, a phone number, some way for the government to contact them to tell them about their, whether they'll get more food stamps, whether they'll get more government aid, where they can go to for the next shelter, the next hotel that they can live in, the next 3-star hotel that they can live in. That's why they need contact information. Well, some of those contact information is sometimes American citizens, whether that's because of human trafficking or sex trafficking, whether that's because they're using slave labor, or whether they're just good-hearted, kind people. I don't know. I would say it's a little bit of a mix of all of the above. So when the government said, hey, you can, as part of the promise of mass deportations, when the Trump administration said, okay, you can either leave the country on your own, or we're going to mass deport you. That's the email that went out. You can leave, you're an illegal alien, and you can leave. Or we will come and get you, and then we're going to deport you. Either one works for the Trump administration. The reason why American citizens got that email is because they said, I'm the contact for, this illegal alien. And if you need to reach this illegal alien, send me the email as an American citizen, and then I'll tell them about it. Trump didn't send an email to American citizens and said, you're going to be deported. He didn't. But that's the fear. They want the fear. They want you to misunderstand so that you'll say, Orange Man bad. Oh my God, he's trying to deport American citizens. No, he's not. He's gone too far. I need someone to put him in check. I got to vote Democrat the next time. In 2026, I've got to vote for Democrats. Why? Because Trump is sending an email to American citizens? No, he's not. Not to tell them to leave. He's sending an email to American citizens saying, hey, that illegal alien you are the contact for, tell them they have to get out of America. They're going to either be deported or they can leave. But the news media has their own agenda. They're misreporting this. They're lying to you. They want you to be afraid. They want you to say, oh my God, Trump's gone too far. Who will save me? So that you'll run to a Democrat. So that you'll vote for Democrats. Because it's the only way that's going to save them. Because the Democrats have no plans. As we talked about earlier, the Democrats have no ideas. They kick the can down the road. They don't care about you. They don't. David Hogg is worried about being a kingmaker. He wants power. He doesn't care about you. Dick Durbin spent 30 years in Congress. He doesn't care about you. They don't care about you. I wish they did. They don't. Look at what they have done. They've lied to you, and then they've lied to you, and then they didn't do what they promised over and over and over again for decades. They don't care about you. But now they're going to tell you, oh my God, Trump's so bad. Trump is doing such evil, terrible things, like sending out emails to illegal aliens and telling the illegal aliens, hey, you got to get out the country. Because that's what Trump was elected to do. That's what the majority of Americans to this day want to see done. That's why they voted for Trump in the first place. To do the mass deportations, to send out the letter and say, get out the country on your own, or we will come and get you and kick you out the country. That's what they're supposed to do. Okay. Let me see here. Joel says, a few visa students are getting revoked. My Democrat representative, Paul Tonko, who is in New York, is trying to make it sound like 100% of the student visas are being canceled. No, they're not. These are very specific individuals. We have tons of students. When you go to Binghamton University, you go to any college, there are tons of students from other countries. Lots of people have visas. And there's barely a handful of students who've had their visas revoked. A visa is not authorization to be in America, by the way. It is the privilege to stay in America for a time. You're coming to America for a purpose, to learn at our colleges, to spend money in our nation. That's what a visa is for. It is not, you're an American citizen, now you have all the rights of American citizens. You don't. That's in the Constitution. Democrats want to make you feel like they have more rights than they do. They don't. They don't have the rights of American citizens. It's very clear. It's in the Constitution. They are a separate class. That's why there are citizens and then there are non-citizens. They don't have the same rights as you and I, as American citizens, do. And when they violate the terms of their visa, which, by the way, the federal government does not need a reason to end a visa, none whatsoever. The government doesn't need a reason to say your visa is revoked, but they can, and they have provided reasons. Now, you may not like the reasons. Some people may not like the reasons why the visas are revoked. That's not the same thing as saying, okay, everybody from Bangladesh has to get out of America. By the way, we can do that. We can do that. As a great example, back when it was President Carter, when we were dealing with the Iran, when the Ayatollah Khomeini was taking over the revolution in Iran in 1979, and President Jimmy Carter was in office, and he did revoke the visas of Iranian students in the United States, many of them. He did force Iranian people who had visas to get out of the country. It's not the first time that our country has done that, because the president does have the right to revoke a visa at will for reasons that's part of the executive branch. He doesn't need a reason, but he can provide a reason, and he can do it to a class of people. The entire all the Iranians on visas in the United States can be revoked. They were under Jimmy Carter. It can be done again. But that's not what he's done. That's not what's happening right now. Again, they're pulling at your heartstrings so that you don't pay attention to the details. It's like Mr. Maryland Man, who happens to be Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And it's very important. Oh, God, I have a bunch of articles here. Where is it? I'll get to the baby thing in a minute. Where is it? Here it is. Let me show you something. Let me show you guys something. This is from PBS. And hang on a second. PBS. This is from PBS. And PBS has more Democratic lawmakers visit El Salvador to see Abrego Garcia. That's not his name. Abrego Garcia. Let's see. Is this another one? Let's see. And I'll show you another one, and then I'm going to come back to it. And this one is an article. So that was NPR. This is from, who's this? Fox 12, Oregon. And Representative Maxine Dexter is in El Salvador demanding the return of a deported Maryland man. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is not a Maryland man. He's not from Maryland. He's an illegal alien. It is an admitted illegal alien. He's a criminal in the United States who was supposed to be deported in 2019. Let's be very clear about that. Was it 2019 or 2021? I believe it was either 2019 or 2021. He went through the court system. He had a hearing because they don't have trials. He got a hearing. He was determined to be deported. He was assigned to immigration judges, confirmed that he is MS13 and he's an illegal alien and he was deportable. And they were going to deport him. And then in 2019, he pulled the wild card and said, wait, asylum. I'm going to die if I go back to his home country where he is from, El Salvador. And Mr. Maryland Man himself Why would he die if he went back to El Salvador? Because he's part of MS13, and there is another gang in El Salvador that is fighting with MS13 and would kill him. It's gang violence, has nothing to do with America, has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with the Venezuelan government or the American government. It has to do with gangs, a bunch of criminals. Criminals would kill him because he's in the wrong criminal faction at any given moment. That's why he had to stay in America, because of gang violence, because of criminality. Oh, the mainstream news media doesn't want to talk about that. No, but he's from Maryland. That's what we called him, Maryland Man. They put it on, it's in the title of the headline, Maryland Man. You're not supposed to think that. You're supposed to think he's a U.S. citizen. He has all the rights of being an American citizen. I mean, he's married. He's got kids. Yeah, he's also abusing his wife, by the way. Oh, well, don't think about that. That's not important. Let's not talk about the past. He's got all the rights of an American citizen because he's a Maryland father. No, he's a father in Maryland. He's not from Maryland. And I can be a father of a child anywhere in the world. That doesn't make me a citizen of wherever that child is. I could have a kid in Tokyo right now. That doesn't make me Japanese. I could have a kid right now over in Germany. And guess what? That doesn't make me German. Kilmar Abrego Garcia has a kid in Maryland. That doesn't make him an American. Doesn't make him a Maryland man. But I want you to see that they are hiding this information from you, that they are messing with you. Let's see. And I believe it's in this article as well. Maxine Dexter is in El Salvador to get the return of the Maryland man who's deported out of the country for being an illegal alien, for breaking the law. She wants to bring a criminal, a confirmed, absolutely 1000% confirmed, admitted criminal back into the United States. The United States government enforced existing law and deported Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And now this Democrat wants to take that criminal from the jail he's in El Salvador, because the Salvadoran government says he's a criminal in El Salvador as well as in the United States. And she's going to take him from that prison and bring him to America, which, by the way, the second that he touches foot, even if Kilmar Abrego Garcia puts one foot back on American soil, he would be picked up by ICE and deported again. He has no right to be in America. He will never be an American citizen. Never. He has no right to be on American soil. If he touches American soil, he'll be deported again. So even if they were to somehow get him out of the jail in his home country for breaking the laws of his home country, so that means that Maxine Dexter, Representative Maxine Dexter, wants to violate the laws of a sovereign country, El Salvador. She wants to break their laws for her feeling so that she can take a known criminal and bring that criminal into America to break the law. Why is she in an elected office? Does that make sense to anyone? Does that make sense to anyone at all? And by the way, I'm not making anything up. This isn't like, oh my God, Mike, you're coming up with it. These are facts. They're lying to your face. Again, the Democrats don't care. They just want power. They don't care how they get it. Orange man, bad. Donald Trump deported an American citizen. No, he didn't. Donald Trump sent letters to American citizens saying he was going to deport them. No, he isn't. That's not what he did. You're lying. Anyone who tells you these things are lying. Now, you want to have an argument. Is it constitutional for Donald Trump to mass deport illegal aliens? It's real simple. The answer is yes. Is it legal for Donald Trump to deport Kilmar Abrego Garcia? The answer is real simple. The answer is yes. Is it legal for the United States government to send emails to the known contact list that we have for these illegal aliens, telling them that they have a choice of either leaving America or being deported? It's a real simple answer. Yes. These are constitutionally correct and legal things for the Trump administration to do. Any president would be authorized and had the right and the power to do so. It's just that the Biden administration was more busy trying to build up illegal aliens so that they could have a landslide of Democrat votes because they wanted a path to citizenship. They wanted a slave force dedicated to making sure the Democrats were in power forever. So they didn't use their power to get rid of the illegal aliens. They wanted them to come in. They used the Biden administration, the Obama administration, Democrats have been using their power against the American people so that we don't stop illegal aliens from coming into our country. We've been expanding the rules and the laws for these criminals to break the law. We've been trying, and the media has been trying to normalize this criminal activity to the point where you say, well, they're an illegal alien. They go, yeah, but what crime did they commit? And we've actually had reporters talking to many of our politicians and the Trump administration say, yes, so why did you deport Kilmar Abrego Garcia? Well, he's an illegal alien. Yes, but what crime did he commit? He's an illegal alien. That is the crime. Full stop. Don't have to go any further. No, but didn't he do anything? But did he do something else? He broke the law. Full stop. Why does he have to do anything else? He's already a criminal. He already is under, according to the rules, according to the laws that exist, not new laws, not new interpretation. The letter of the law says he's a criminal. Kick him out of the country. It's real simple. And they're worried about, well, where did he go? I don't care. I don't think the majority of American citizens care. Who cares where he goes? But Mike, he's not in America anymore. I don't want him in America anymore. He's an illegal alien. Where is he? He's in his home country. Where is that? Don't care. What's he doing there? I don't care. Why should I care? Why do we have to care? He's not our responsibility. You know who should care where he is? Then the Salvadoran government. El Salvador's government should care where Kilmar Abrego Garcia is. They care because he's their citizen. America doesn't care. But what about his wife and kids? His wife can go to El Salvador. His kid can go to El Salvador. No one's stopping them. No one has told his wife, you can't get on a plane and go to El Salvador. No one has said to that wife, to his Kilmar Abrego Garcia's wife, no one has told her, you can't get on a plane with your son, who's also an American citizen, and fly into El Salvador. No one said that. They can go anytime they want. They want to be with him, fly to El Salvador. Go right now. No one is stopping her. They can go anytime they want to. And by the way, they're American citizens. They can come back to America anytime they want to. Take a flight out to a foreign country, come back to America anytime they want. No one will stop them. Go to a foreign country, go over to the American embassy, show your blue passport, and you will be in, and no one will stop them. No one has prevented anything. The law has been enforced as it should be. Democrats don't like it, because they don't have power anymore, because they don't get to be in charge anymore, because Trump is doing what he promised the people he would do. And that means Democrats don't get power. They might not win the next set of elections because of that, because a politician actually is doing what he was elected to do. He's actually serving the public. They don't like that because they have nothing to compete with. They have nothing to show in competition with that. And that's why they're upset. And by the way, and I said this on my Sunday live stream, the reason why you keep seeing everyone call him Abrego Garcia instead of his full name, which is in fact Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Why do they keep calling him Abrego? Easy, because the news media know that there is a percentage of American citizens who are going to mispronounce his name. for whatever reason, they misread it, they mishear it, whatever the reason, they're going to mess up his first name. And there are more than a few of them will say his name as Kilmore. Not Kilmar, Kilmore. And Kilmore sounds negative. When you say that illegal alien, Kilmore, what's his name? Kilmore. And that's the thing you're talking about. You don't remember his full name. You go, Kilmore, what was it? Kilmore Garcia? Well, do you want illegal aliens named Kilmore in your nation? Do you trust people named Kilmore? Does that seem like a friendly, welcoming name? Is that someone you want as your next door neighbor? Not likely. And they know that. So to maintain the illusion that this is a Maryland man, he's from Maryland, of course. No, he's not. Then his name can't be Kilmore because that's not an American name. So they have to change it. And Abrego, even if you screw that up, and people will not say Abrego correctly, but you can't get Kilmore. You can't get a negative connotation out of screwing up Abrego like you can Kilmore. That you can screw up, and that actually hurts the movement for the Democrats. So they call him Abrego instead, ignoring his first name, not including his first name. It'd be one thing if that they called him that, but you'll see in the newspapers, they don't even include that first name. If you didn't know better, if you were just going by headlines, this guy doesn't, his first name is Abrego. You would think his first name is Abrego. That's because they're deceiving you. And as much as people are trying to figure out, well, Donald Trump, is he doing something unconstitutional? They're not looking at look at the news media. They're lying to your face. This is the definition of yellow journalism. They're lying to your face. They're not even telling you this guy's full name because they're afraid you're going to mishear it. And that might hurt their chances, their political chances, their political agenda from getting through. So they won't give that. That's how petty they are on being willing to lie to you to push their agenda forward. And Trump is in fact following the law. You know what the big argument is? And I know a lot of people have had this argument. You know what the big problem with the Supreme Court, what the courts are? It's not that Abrego isn't a criminal. The court agrees he is. And the court has no problem. They've already said he has the right. The president, any president, has the right to deport him. That's not a problem. That's not in question. It's the paperwork. The court wants the paperwork filled out before he gets deported. That's what they're upset with Trump for. That's why they want him back. He didn't fill out all the paperwork. That's the argument. And the mainstream news media doesn't want to talk to you about it. They don't want to tell you, yeah, what's the big holdup? Why are they fighting with the courts? Paperwork. They want the paperwork filled out. It's the process. It's not that he isn't a criminal or any of the other illegal aliens. They're all criminals. Everyone agrees. And it's not because they're deportable. Everyone knows they are. Everyone agrees. And the president has the power to deport them en masse. Everyone agrees. That's not the issue. The issue is, did you fill out the paperwork? And I want you to think about that. The Democrats are focused on paperwork. You know why? Because the more paperwork you have to do, the more loopholes they can put into the paperwork to let this take forever. He will be doing paperwork for the next 2 years. Guilty as hell, deportable instantly. But if you have to do the paperwork, he'll be here for the next 2 years. If they go into trials, which they don't have, if we start having trials for every illegal alien, which they don't do, they have hearings, not the same thing. And if we have to do that, we'll never get rid of any of these illegal aliens, which is what Democrats want. They don't want to get rid of the illegal aliens. They want them here. They don't care it's inflationary. They don't care that this is a danger to communities across the country. Not because every illegal alien is dangerous, but if even 1% of all the illegal aliens are criminals, that's Think about it. Out of 8 million, that's 800,000 criminals. Think about that. Even if it was just an extra 80,000, maybe I'm doing the math wrong. Let's say it's 80,000 extra criminals in America that otherwise would not have to be in America. And the Democrats would rather have you suffer through 80,000 extra criminals who are breaking and entering, stealing your property, killing you and your family and your friends, drugs and slavery and human trafficking, otherwise known as also slavery. They'd rather have that and gang fights, gang shootouts. The number one reason why Black people die in America, gang fighting. They'd rather have all of that so that they can get to the point where they can get a path to citizenship because they've been here for so long. They get a path to citizenship and now they're dependent on Democrats. That's what Democrats want. They don't care about how much pain and suffering the American people go through because they're not connected to them anyway, because like Dick Durbin and Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, AOC, they're all living behind protected walls, gated communities. They don't get to see you. They don't live your life. They don't care about you at all. David Hogg doesn't care. David Hogg is worth $2 million. He's never had a real job in his life. Never. Not once has David Hogg done a real day's work. Not once. He lives off of donations because he was at a place where a thing happened. He was one of many survivors of a mass shooting, and he used that emotion to make money. That's why David Hogg is worth $2 million. Democrats don't care about you. They don't care about facts. They care about emotions. They care about power, and they use emotions to get power. And that's, sadly, is that constitutional? Yes. Should it be? That's a different question. But has Trump done anything unconstitutional? No. Joel says, and I did see this before, Joel, I was watching, and I am looking for in case anyone does a super chat or a Rumble rant, of course, I will get to that faster. But I did see your comment, Joel, about Tim Pool was asking about the Maryland man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, over at the White House during the press briefing. I saw that. I did see the interview that that Tim Pool was doing with Kristi Noem as well. And I'm glad. I would love to be able to be in the press corps as well. And I submitted, and we'll see if I ever get that. But I'm glad that he was there to point out the same thing, that this is what the news media is doing, and this is despicable. It may be constitutional. It may be an expression of freedom of speech, but it's also despicable for what it is. And we should call it out. And by the way, I can't imagine, and I am looking forward to, by the way, I want to point this out, this one in particular, Miss Maxine, this is Maxine Dexter. She's the congresswoman out of Oregon. She has to explain, and I would love to see the town hall meeting that she's going to have when she goes back to her constituents, and she has to explain, why are you spending so much time and money on a criminal? That is a fact. We start with that. He is a absolute 100%. He is a criminal. He's an illegal alien. That's a fact. He has been confirmed as a member of MS13 by 2 judges. 2. So that's a fact. In addition to that, he is suspected of having human trafficking and beating his wife. You went and you are spending time and money that could be used to feed the homeless in Oregon. She could be spending her time feeding children in Oregon. She could be working to help veterans in Oregon. This is what she was elected for, to help Americans with American issues. And she's spending her time and her energy and her political capital helping a foreign criminal. to break the law. Her whole thing is she's trying to help him break the law to bring him back into America, which is a crime, so that he can live his life in America, which is a crime. Instead of helping to feed kids in Oregon, instead of helping veterans in Oregon, instead of making the lives of people in Oregon better, she is trying to make the life of one El Salvadoran man better. That isn't what she was elected for. If she went around in 2024 and talking to all of her constituents and said, hey, you know what I'm going to do? If you elect me, I'm going to go to foreign countries and I'm going to go to their jails and I'm going to get their criminals in these foreign countries and I'm going to bring them to America. And then your taxes in Oregon, her constituents, they're going to go and we're going to take your tax money and we're going to give it to these criminals that came from another country in a prison, and I'm going to give them, and I'm going to put them in a 3-star, 4-star hotel. Yes, I know your house needs a new roof. Yes, I know your house is falling apart. I know your house just burned down. Not going to give you any money for that. We're going to take the money that could go for all of that, and we're going to give it to this criminal so they can live in a hotel, and we're going to take some more money because I know you want to give your kids better food for lunch at school. We're going to take that money as well. And we're going to give that money to this criminal from another country from who's in prison. And we're going to give them money we're going to give them a credit card so they can go and buy food and other essential items while they stay in America, which is, a crime. So that's why you should vote for me. My God. This is how Democrats get reelected? This is how they get elected? No wonder I didn't win in 2014. For those who don't know, I ran for elected office in 2014. No wonder I didn't win. I didn't go over to all the Democrats in my district and say, hey, guys, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to waste your money. I'm going to take all your tax money and I'm going to waste it on stuff that will never benefit any one of you. I'm going to make sure that crime continues without ever stopping. I'm not going to do a damn thing that you want. And if I had said that to the Democrats in the New York 22nd district back in 2014, maybe I would have gotten elected. The only thing I would say, you know what? You're not voting for me to fix anything. You're going to vote for me because I'm a Black Hispanic. I swear to God, I had consultants who talked to me. They were DC consultants, and they were telling me, you know what you need to do, Mike? Remind everyone, you're Black, you're Hispanic, and they have to vote for you. Play with the race card. Use the race card. And I know for a fact that the Republican, I was in a primary with Richard Hanna. And I know for a fact that Richard Hanna's team were terrified that I would decide to use the race card in the New York 22nd race because they couldn't do anything about it. They were terrified that if I started playing the race card, I would be able to raise more money than they could ever raise, and that they couldn't say a word about it. They wouldn't be able to do anything about it because I'm Black and Hispanic, and they couldn't say anything because Richard Hanna was white. I didn't, and I lost the race. But that's what they were afraid of. And you know what? According to what I'm seeing from Congresswoman Maxine Dexter, I should have, because that would have won it. At least if I was a Democrat, I absolutely would have won. Because she's not doing anything for her constituents. Nothing she is doing in El Salvador. By the way, I don't even know. She might be breaking the law in El Salvador, by the way. She's trying to take a criminal out of prison. That's like an escape plan. I don't know. That's like breaking someone out of jail. She may be a criminal. The other three Democrats that are there with her, they may be criminals. No one's thought about that, huh? Okay, that being said, let me move on. I wasn't expecting to be on this long. Okay. Okay, so it is legal for President Trump to mass deport illegal aliens, including the man from El Salvador who is living in Maryland. Perfectly legal. It is okay for the tariffs make sense, but it's going to be difficult, and the economy is going to go up and it's going to go down because the economy goes up and down all the time. That's why we have stockbrokers, because some things go up and some things go down. We've been through multiple recessions, including the one we've been in now since August of 2022, when Joe Biden changed the definition of what is a recession. He changed the definition so that he didn't have to go through the midterms with recession having started. And we haven't gotten out of that recession yet. So, no, Trump started a recession. No, he didn't. We've been in the recession for 2 years now, 3 years. That's the Biden recession. Started in August 2022. Don't believe me? I have videos detailing it. In fact, I have a video in February of 2021, where I was predicting when the recession would start. It was actually February 17th of 2021, I believe. And then I had another video in February of 2022 talking about that and the food shortage. So I'm not just saying this, I've actually proven this before. But let me go further. So it's constitutional. What Trump is doing is constitutional. Again, you don't have to like him. You don't have to like what he's doing. It is legal. What isn't legal are what Democrats are doing. What they are doing is emotional manipulation, which is morally wrong. And they are trying to aid and abet criminals, which is legally wrong. But we know that Democrats don't care about being illegal, doing illegal things that they punish other people for, because we have Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York. She's more than happy to commit fraud, as she was trying people in court for fraud. That was Trump. She claimed Trump made a fraud, and she was actively committing fraud as the Attorney General, knew exactly what she's doing. So Democrats don't care about breaking the law. They care about controlling you. Now, one thing that I don't know, is it constitutional or not? And this is a big question. People may have heard about this. They may not. I don't know. You may know that right now, hang on a second. There we go. So you may be aware that every single first world nation has had a decrease in the number of babies, the birth rate in every first world nation for the last roughly 5 years or more have been going down. Some nations 10 years, some nations within the last 5 years. But every nation's had a downturn in the birth rate. In fact, in the United States, it's a little more, we're closer to 10 years that the birth rate has been decreasing. Other than 2020, because lockdowns, people had nowhere to go, they had nothing to do. We had a spike in births in 2020, 2021. But since the lockdowns, the number has been going down. We're having fewer and fewer babies, and more of the babies that are being born, in many cases, are having more issues. There's more autism. That is a fact. It's not an opinion. It's not a question. I believe it's 83%. The increase is 83% more autism now than there was in the past. Why? Well, partially because more women are having kids later in life. We know that's a fact. That's part of the reason why the birth rate is going down. Young women aren't having babies as much. They're not getting married as much, and they're not having babies as much. Older women who are getting married, some of them are having, like in their 30s and 40s, some of them are getting married, and some of them are having babies. And then women in their 40s, some of them are having babies because they're at the end of their cycle. But not enough. And of the ones that are, we're seeing more and more issues. ADHD, ADD, we're seeing more allergies, more severe allergies, and of course, we're seeing more autism. These are all happening. But we need to turn that around. one of the things that can help, besides having a healthier lifestyle, and we'll talk about RFK in a second, but one of the things that we can do as a nation is we can encourage young people to get married. Now, I know colleges don't believe that. Feminism doesn't believe in that. Intersectionality doesn't believe in that. They want people in open relationships, poly, which means you're going to never get married and you won't have a stable family and you won't have kids. That's what that means. And that's fine if that's what you choose. But they're not encouraging, and they have been doing anything but encouraging. You look at movies, TV shows, ads, comic books, you look at novels, you look at politicians and the laws they put out. Everything is saying, don't have kids, don't get married, don't have kids. That's what's being pushed in the culture and in the politics when Democrats are in control. That results in, and people are going to say, but Mike, why do we have to worry about that? So the birth rate is down. It's unsustainable. It means our country is shrinking. There are fewer people to run the country, to keep everything maintained. No first world nation can survive and forget thrive. They can't survive with the birth rates going down as they have been doing. And every first world nation's having this impact. Third world nations, which have less technology, they have less of the regulations that we have right now. They have less of the poisonous foods that we often have, less of the mindset, the intersectionality. They don't have that in third world nations. And those nations have their birth rates at the same level or higher than they have been over the last 5 and 10 years. Tells you something there. So Donald Trump has decided that he wants to give $5,000 to women when they get married and have a baby. $5,000 to each woman that gets married and has a baby. My question isn't, can we afford that? We kind of can't. But the bigger question is that constitutional? Does the president have the right to give people money? And in this case, giving women money for doing something that he wants them to do, which is get married, have kids. Okay. Does the president have the right to do that? That's a good question. No one really ever asked that question. And I can tell you right now that this article, which comes from Channel 8 News Now, isn't asking that question. This is from News Nation. They're not asking the question, does the president have the right to give women $5,000 for having a baby and being married? I don't know if that's constitutional. But worse than that, or more important than that, is I don't know if I want the president to do that. Now, I know there are some people in this article, it's highlighted. I believe, do I have it highlighted? Let's see. Not the other possible. No, where is it? No. Here it is. So there are some people, and let me make this a little bit larger if I can. So there are some people who are going to say, well, you just get illegal aliens. Just don't give Americans money to have American kids in America. Have illegal aliens. Just have more aliens come in. Have more people who don't share in the American dream, who don't share in the American goals, the American identity. Have people from other countries come into America, and let's give them money to be in America and have babies. That's just stupid. That's stupid. And that's how you destroy the American country. This is the progressive dream, to destroy our nation by destroying our ideology, to destroy our society. And this is evil. And this is in the article from Newsmax. There are people. Art Kaplan, a professor, shocking, of medical ethics at the New York University School of Medicine, said this. Am I shocked? Not at all. Oops, wait a minute. There we go. Am I shocked that Art Kaplan of the New York School of Medicine, that he would suggest, hey, I got a great idea. Let's get illegal aliens, foreigners, to come into America with their very different culture, their very different ideology, their very different beliefs. Let's bring them into America, not to be Americans, but just to have babies in America. So those kids are going to be American citizens, and that'll be fine, and it'll all work. No, it won't. Multiculturalism, it works so great. Look how well it's been working so far. It doesn't. We have a bunch of enclaves of different cultures across our country. Dearborn, Michigan isn't a bunch of, they are American citizens. There are many American citizens in Dearborn, Michigan. And then there's a larger number of people from the Middle East that live in America. They're not Americans. They're living in America. They're, for lack of, I'm just throwing out one nation in particular, they're Pakistanis in America, not Pakistani Americans. Okay, you can say the same thing about any of the various groups. We're seeing more and more migrants, people who legally should be in America. They're coming over and they are going into enclaves. They're not becoming Americans. They're being in America. And there's a big difference. And that's what this NYU, this is what this School of Medicine, New York School of Medicine, Art Kaplan is his name. That's what he's suggesting. Let's get more people in America, not to be Americans, but to just be here. And that's going to solve the birth rate problem. He's out of his mind. That's stupid. That is a stupid suggestion. But the question is, does Trump have the right as a president to try and convince people to get married and to have children and to pay them for being married and having children? I'm not sure. To be fair, I don't know. I don't know if that's something that we want our presidents to do. I'm not sure about that. I don't know if that's a good thing long term, to give the president that kind of power, to pay people to do something that has to deal with families and culture and society. You're paying for society. I don't know that that's a good thing. I don't know if that's a positive for America. I don't know if that's a trend we want to see go forward. President Trump hasn't said he's absolutely going to do it, but he's considering it. I don't know how else. I think that's where he's going to go. It's not a terrible idea, but I'm not sure it's a good consequence. I just wanted to bring that out. People should think about that. Should presidents pay people to have kids? Should presidents pay people to not have kids? Does the government have a right to be involved with the citizens having or not having kids, getting married or not getting married? That's micromanagement. That's micromanaging people to either convince them to have kids or to not have kids. That's government intrusion in your life. I don't know that I like that. I don't, and again, it's not because I think Donald Trump has a bad intention here. We need to have a higher birth rate. I don't think Trump's doing something malicious or bad. I just don't know that I want a precedent set where the government is capable of making that kind of decision to inject itself into individual lives. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing. I tend to think it isn't. Grace has joined us, and Grace says, kind of what the revenue code does, give tax incentives for marriage. That's different, though. That's not what we're talking about here, and I showed in the article, is literally you're going to get money for having a marriage certificate and a baby. not one or the other, but having both. That's very intrusive. It's one thing for the government to say, hey, here's a bonus. You're married. Here's a bonus. That's the tax incentive you're talking about, Grace. That's one thing. Okay. So it's a bonus, but you don't have to, you can live without the bonus. You can survive without the bonus. The government isn't interfering with your life. It's not forcing me. I'm not being forced to go, I got to get married because that bonus is so huge, that incentive is so huge, it changes my life. It changes my responsibilities. It changes everything. Not the same thing. Having the baby, now you have, well, besides you're tethered to America, you're tethered to that baby, you're tethered to our society. You should be anyway. But now you have the financial ties to that baby, to raising that child. I don't know. And you're right, Grace. We do need a higher birth rate, and we do need kids in stable homes. I agree. Again, I'm not. It's not that I think it's a bad idea, but at the same time, I can see abuse of this. Anytime you introduce more government intervention in private lives, the more likely they're going to screw something up. The more that they're going to try and be worming their way and micromanaging your life. We saw that with Obamacare. We saw that with the lockdowns. The government, the moment that it gets any power over your individual life, they will abuse that power as much as they can. And they did, both, again, with Obamacare and with the lockdowns. We saw examples of that. We're still seeing examples of that. So I don't know if that's a good thing. Again, I'm bringing up the question. I'm not saying that I have the answer for that one. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. Okay, so I want to go real quick through RFK and then Pete Hegseth, because we've been on, I didn't expect to be on this long today since I didn't have the panel with me, but we've been having a great conversation. I hope people are enjoying it. If you are, please like, please share, please subscribe. This was all very spontaneous today, so it's not as organized as I usually like to do. But I do want to get through these two other subjects, okay? And thank you for your comments, Grace. Thank you for giving me your insight on that as a woman, as a potentially as a mother. It's a different way of looking at it, so thank you for that. But I do want to talk about RFK briefly, and I do want to address something. I find it interesting. RFK Jr. has said he wants to find a cure for autism. The left hates him. They hate that. They think it's evil. They have been portraying that as being essentially demonic, that this is the most evil thing you can do, that you are hurting the children. Autistic kids are in trouble, that they are being demonized, that they are being talked down to, that they are being diminished because Pete Hegseth, because RFK Jr. would dare to find a cure for autism, which is an abnormal state of human life. That's not normal. Having autism isn't normal. It's like being blind, like being deaf. You are disabled. You are at a disadvantage. You are not capable of the things most people, the average person, can do. That's why we call it a disability. That doesn't mean that it's a disease. It doesn't mean that it's negative. I'm not demonizing anyone who has or doesn't have autism, a high-end, low-functioning, whatever it may be. No. And I've seen several people cover this recently and seen several debates, and you can see this is coming from Axios, which is a far-left news organization. And you can see their title right here. People with autism seek dignity, where RFK seeks a cure. How do you lose dignity? Blind people didn't lose dignity as scientists were finding out ways, and they have, to be able to put devices in people's eyes and return their sight. Blind people have been given the ability to regain their sight. That didn't make blind people less dignified. Deaf people have had cochlear, I think it's called cochlear implants, which would that they can get the surgery and they put in the implant and now they're able to hear. That didn't make deaf people less dignified. You took away a disability. It is something that is now capable, and we're learning more and more about it to make it more and more capable for people to not have these birth defects, these impacts from diseases, and various reasons why these people have become disabled. We're being able to better make prosthetic legs and limbs for people. That doesn't make people who are handicapped, who don't have those limbs, doesn't insult them. It doesn't disgrace them. Hell, my father grew up, he had half an arm and half a leg because of complications from from the war, Vietnam, and also PTSD afterwards. And so he suffered a great deal. But guess what? Talking about and getting him a better prosthetic arm, he had the hook instead of for his arm, he had the hook attachment, and he had a fake leg. And getting a better fake leg, getting a better hook, didn't make him less dignified throughout his life. It was just a matter of function. It made him more functional. And God bless the man. He was quite functional throughout his life. He was capable of doing just about everything everyone else could. But saying that he had a fake arm and a fake leg isn't insulting to him. It did not make him less dignified. And saying that you're going to make a better fake arm or a better fake leg for him didn't take away his dignity or his capabilities. But the left wants you to think that this is somehow a bad thing, that someone would want to take away the you can call it distractions, the maladies, the disability, can take that away from those who are autistic. That doesn't make them less human. It just takes away the problems that they have. They're able to communicate more. Why wouldn't we want RFK to do that? Again, it's because the left hate you. They don't like people. They don't understand people. They don't connect with people. There is nothing wrong with curing autism if you can. I don't know that we can. I think we can find the cause of autism because it is increasing. There is something abnormal happening here. That is a fact. What that fact is, we don't know. Could it be injections? Could it be microplastics? Could it be diets? It could be a lot of things. I don't know. Maybe it's all of those things, or individually one of those things, or a mix of some of those things, or something else that we don't know. I don't know. But I do believe we can find the cause. It's not purely just genetics, obviously. Otherwise, we wouldn't see this increasing rate, this pattern of growth of kids who are afflicted with autism. We wouldn't see that if it were just genetics, if it was some kind of recessive gene. That's not it. And to say that, well, it's not dignified to find out why people are getting autism, and it's not dignified to help them live a better life, maybe even getting rid of that, of curing them. That's not dignified. That's evil. That's evil to me. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me in understanding that. What do you guys have to say? I know, Grace, you have a couple of comments here. She goes, I think the cure for spectrum disorders is in prevention. I think that's the best answer. That's the most realistic answer, is that we will probably be able to figure out the cause, what causes it, and to prevent that in the future, to lower the odds of having an autistic child, of having a child on the spectrum. We can lower the chances, and that's basically a cure in and of itself. And isn't that a good thing? I don't see how the left can say this is so evil or bad. The answer is, realistically, what I really think is RFK is no longer a Democrat. RFK is working with Orange Man Bad. So everything that RFK touches must be evil and must be portrayed as evil. No matter what the positive aspect is, no matter how many people might be benefited, no matter if this is good for our nation at the end of the day or not. Is RFK working within the powers of the government? Yes, he is. Is what he is doing a positive for our society? Yes, it is. Why are they trying to stop it? Why would you do that? Why would you say, don't do that? Don't help these people. What, you wouldn't help a blind person? You wouldn't help a deaf person? You wouldn't help a person who is disabled, that they're missing a leg or arm or multiple limbs? Now, again, that doesn't mean that you're going to infantilize them. I'm not saying that. We're not trying to infantilize them. We're not taking away their agency, their ability to live their life. No one has suggested that. The answer is, if we can cure this, why not? If we can make them live a higher quality of life, why not? And if we can prevent this from happening to the next kid, why not? That doesn't make people less dignified. I don't understand the left. I don't understand the left. I just don't. Okay. Final thing I wanted to talk about with you guys. And to be fair, this isn't entirely my idea. So I was watching Hard Lens Media earlier today. My friend Kit Cabello, a former Marine, he's on the left. Kit will tell you that right up front. He's on the left. He's a leftist. He's not a Democrat. He's a leftist. Probably I would call him a progressive. He may or may not call himself a progressive. He's definitely on the left. And I'm watching his program because I watch the left. I listen to what they're talking about and what they think. And it's important to do that. You got to know what's happening, because sometimes they have good ideas. And in this case, when watching Kit Cabello, Hard Lens Media, at 10 o'clock in the morning, and he brought up that Nico House, also very far left. I don't agree with these people whatsoever, but okay, Nico House said, hey, Pete Hegseth, there's a scandal again. And it's with Signal again. Pete Hegseth was having now Signal was authorized by the Biden administration. It's a app on your phone. Okay, so you can plug it into your phone, the Signal app, and that encrypts your conversations through that app. And that encryption is strong enough, according to the Biden administration, so that the White House, the cabinet members, the government, and individuals with secret clearances can use Signal for communications amongst members, because it is encrypted. And the encryption is high enough and strong enough to allow secret messages. That's the Biden White House that said this. Not the Trump administration. That was the Biden administration that said that. So the Trump administration is using Signal because the Biden administration used Signal. Pete Hegseth, obviously earlier this year, hang on 1 second, folks. Sorry, I have a mustache hair that was just bugging me, and I had to get rid of that. So Pete Hegseth, earlier, within the last, we still haven't hit 100 days. Pete Hegseth decided to have a meeting with several members of the cabinet, and that's when he invited a member, the editor of The Atlantic. Somehow, one of the aides, one of the lower level aides of Pete Hegseth, some person working for Hegseth, invited the Atlantic editor to join the meeting that was going on amongst the cabinet members. Stupid, human error, could happen to anyone. A bunch of people got fired. Okay. Now there's another scandal, which you may have heard of. It sounds almost like the last scandal, because it's pretty much the same thing and happened at the same time, apparently. This happened in March. So when Pete Hegseth was reaching out and speaking to his cabinet members, he was also speaking to his wife, his brother, and his lawyer. Now, I say that not because I think so, but because that is what the credible news media is saying. In particular, this story is coming from NPR. And there's a reason why I'm using NPR as the source, okay? NPR has made this decision. And they're saying, yep, he was talking to his brother, his wife, and his lawyer about information that many would consider to be secret. May have been, it's not clear exactly what information was conveyed at that time. This is all in March. And now the news is coming out. And here's my problem. Because NPR, the left-leaning news media, are saying, hey, Pete Hegseth shared secret information with his brother, his wife, and his lawyer. How do they know? This is something that Nico House brought up. This is something that Kit Cabello brought up. They're members of the left. I'm on the right, and I'm asking the same question. How does NPR know this? NPR broke the story, said this happened. How do you know? That was a secure app, a secure communication between Pete Hegseth and his wife. I don't think his wife is exposing him. His brother, I don't think that's someone who's going to expose him. And the lawyer, again, someone I don't have a reason to believe that any of those individuals would have turned around and told NPR, hey, guess what? He gave me secret information. They wouldn't do that. So how does NPR have this story? How did they confirm this? How did they get into an encrypted program? How did they somehow had to, because even if they got a hold of the messages, they would be encrypted. They wouldn't be able to read them. So they wouldn't know what Pete Hegseth said to his wife, because anyone can use Signal. I can use Signal right now, and I can reach out to my brother, my sister. I could reach out to Pete Hegseth. I could reach out to Pete Hegseth's brother and lawyer. I can reach to anyone. Anyone can use Signal. It's not just exclusively for the government. So, but just because I'm using it doesn't mean that I have access to someone else's Signal account. It doesn't mean that I would be able to read their messages they send to someone else that I'm not connected to. So how is NPR getting this information and verifying this information? Something is wrong. And according to Nico House, he believes that the answer is the president of NPR is also the president of Signal. And because of her access to the app, to the technology, to controlling that app, and her access to NPR, the news agency, that she abused her power and reached out and used her ability, her access in Signal to tap into the encryption, to tap into the account of the Secretary of Defense, and to find out what he was saying, and use that, and then used her ability as president of NPR to leak that information, to expose that to the public so that the Trump administration would be embarrassed. Something that could not otherwise be revealed. Because I know that NPR likes to say, well, there are other people who were working with Hegseth and they all got fired. We don't know why. And maybe the leak came from one of those individuals. Guess what? They aren't his brother, his wife, and his lawyer. It's a very specific group of people. And I may tell if you may tell your buddy and your friend, hey, guess what? I had this conversation with my wife the other day, and I told them, I was asking them a question about how we do X, Y, Z in my company. Maybe you tell someone that. I don't know why you would tell someone that, but maybe you did. Okay, they can't verify that. There's no way for them to prove that. They can go and tell anyone else. I think that Mike talked to his wife about XYZ. They can say that, and everyone would rightly say, can you prove it? The answer would be no. No, I have no way to prove it. He sent his wife, if you say Pete Hegseth sent his wife a text on Signal, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Do you have proof? No. Well, I know he sent her a message. Okay. What does it say? I don't know. It's encrypted. Then, okay, full stop. He can use Signal. He can use Signal off of his regular phone. Everyone can. I have Signal on my phone right now. Anyone can. So that doesn't mean that you did or didn't get access to secret information. Anyone can use it. He could be talking to his wife about groceries. Not saying that he did or didn't. I'm saying he could. So how does NPR know this? How do they verify this? Did they verify it? That's the other question here. Are we sure that they even tried to verify it? Or did they just make up a story and ran with it? And the rest of the news media don't care. They're not going to try and fact check it. They're not going to look at the background. They're going to say, NPR said so. So yeah, according to NPR, Pete Hegseth, he was sharing secret information with his wife, his brother, and his lawyer. Period. Full stop. We didn't ask Pete Hegseth. We didn't ask the Trump administration. NPR said so that we're going to say so because that makes Pete Hegseth look bad. It makes the Trump administration look bad, and that makes Democrats look good. Let's look at it a slightly different way. Did Pete Hegseth ever disclose or share secret information with his wife? Probably. So did every other married president, every other married person in the world. Michelle Obama got access to secret information, not because Michelle Obama has a secrecy rating, not because she was elected to anything, because she was the wife of Barack Obama. And because Barack knew things, Michelle knew things because she's his wife. Same thing for Jill Biden. Same thing for every wife, Hillary Clinton, everyone, go straight down the line, Nancy Reagan, every wife of every president has been exposed to secret information, even though they don't have a secrecy rating. They weren't elected to any office, and they have no control of anything. Every Secretary of State, every Secretary of Defense, every member of a cabinet that has a wife or a husband, either way, I am sure, are talking with their spouse about secret information, about decisions they made, about the weight that these individuals have to live with for some of the decisions they've made. And no one, up until now, has ever questioned that. It is the one thing that we've all understood, that everyone knows happens, that no one's questioned. No one has ever questioned, did you talk to your wife about anything? Any of the pressures of the job that you do, of the people that you affect or couldn't affect, that you couldn't help? No one's ever asked that question because we all know the answer to the question. Yes, of course you did. Of course you talked to your wife, your significant other, your husband, your wife, whatever you want to name them. Of course you did. It's human nature. It's part of a relationship. Everyone does that. The CEO tells his wife about whatever is going on in the company. The wife complains about, she's a senior level executive. She complains about the junior level executives to her husband. These things happen. That's natural. Yes, you give away trade secrets to your family members. You talk to them about trade secrets, their opinions of it. What did they think? What did they think? It's a good thing, a bad thing? Is it going to backfire? Should I be looking for a new job? We have these conversations with the closest of our closest circle. Now, we don't go running around talking to our third cousin twice removed. That's not the same thing. But you tell me wife, brother, lawyer, pretty secure. It's a pretty small group of people. Is that a threat to national security? Wife, brother, lawyer? No. No, I don't think that's a national security threat. I don't think it's a big deal. But again, my bigger question is, how do you know? Not that he was, first of all, how do you know he was talking to his wife, his brother, and his lawyer? And second thing, how do you know what they said? He could have been talking about a divorce. Could have been talking about buying property or selling property or, an heirloom in the family that's been handed down. Maybe there was an inheritance from great grand uncle, whomever, and that it's an heirloom in the family, and the brother and Pete Hegseth are arguing about who should have it, and they asked his wife. And the lawyer's on the line just in case they make a decision. You don't know the conversation that they were having, or at least you're not supposed to. Unless the Democrat CEO of NPR, who happens to be the CEO of Signal, used the influence of their positions to break in and find that out. That is a crime. And that is where the scandal should be. Not with Pete Hegseth. It should be with NPR. That's who should be guilty. But you're not going to hear that from the mainstream news media. They're going to run with the idea, oh, gee, you can't trust Pete Hegseth. He talks to his wife like everyone else. You can't trust Pete Hegseth with secret information on Signal because the Biden administration authorized Signal, said it's encrypted and it's secure. You should be worried about Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump because they don't know what they're doing. Yeah, because they didn't have to worry about, the Biden administration didn't have to worry about NPR working against them to expose them, to make them look bad. I don't know. At least that's a thought I have. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be completely wrong. I don't know. I don't think this is a legitimate issue. Even if Pete Hegseth told his wife secret information, I'm perfectly fine with that because everyone does. Everyone talks to their wife or their spouse, their husband, whomever it is. Everybody does. And we all know they do. And everyone expected them to. You're not holding those secrets from these people. You're not. In fact, you're probably talking with them about those secrets to deal with those secrets because they're pretty big issues when we're talking about top level of national governments. I don't care about that. I don't care about that. And if anyone's actually honest, no one in America cares about that. No one in America has ever worried about that. Never. No one has ever worried. No one has ever asked Obama, gee, did you tell Michelle Obama secret information while you were president? No one ever asked that question. Because the answer would be yes. If anyone asked, if Obama would bother to answer the question, the answer would be yes, of course he did. No, but his answer would be, why are you in my life? And that should be the answer for Pete Hegseth. Why are you in my life? Why are you trying to figure out what I'm telling my wife, my brother, and my lawyer? Why are you in that conversation? It's very specific. It's very personal. Has nothing to do with being Secretary of Defense. Stay out of his life. But I'm the bad guy for saying that. I don't know. Okay. So, let's see. Amp to Deck 51 says that Pete Hegseth is wrong and he should resign. Why? Why? Amp, I'm not picking on you. I just want to understand. You're saying, let me put it up here. You're saying Pete is wrong. Pete Hegseth is wrong. It was evil or bad, or I don't know what the word would be. He should resign because he had a conversation with his wife. What's wrong with that? Should Obama? So, Amp, I'm going to ask you, should Obama have resigned because he had conversations with Michelle Obama about secret information? How about Jill Biden? Jill Biden was just recently, Jill Biden was going into cabinet level meetings with Joe Biden because Joe Biden was mentally unfit. Joe Biden isn't elected to any office. Joe Biden doesn't have a secret clearance, and definitely not the same secret clearance. If she were to get one, she wouldn't get the same thing as President Biden. Shouldn't that have been a problem? Should Joe Biden have resigned at that moment when he did that? He broke the rules. And as I'm explaining, so has every single president that has ever been married that has been president. All of them. Every single secretary that has been married broke those rules. That's given. Everyone understands that. Joe Biden broke those rules with Jill Biden. We know that for a fact. So, okay, what are you saying? Are you saying that this is the understanding that everyone has always had in every government, everywhere in the world? And you're saying that, oh, no, but he broke the rules. Do you know how many Democrats we can go down the list of how many rules they have broken over the years and they're still in elected office? Grace says, by the way, folks, just so you can see what I'm talking about here. So again, this is what AMP followed up with. He broke the rules because, we haven't seen Democrats break the rules before, like Joe Biden being mentally disabled. He's incompetent, and yet, he was still president. That was breaking the rules, but they didn't care about that. And Joe says, well, Dr. Jill was running the country. Wasn't that breaking the rules? Joe Biden wasn't mentally fit to run the country. Isn't that part of the rules? Let's see. AMP goes on to say, if you use that, quote, everyone else does it argument, then how can anyone be elected or appointed? No. It is accepted by everyone in the world, in every elected office in the world, every president in the world, every CEO in the world, if they are married, yes, they are sharing information with secret information, private, what's the word I'm looking for? Essential information. It's not the word I was looking for, but essential information with their spouse. Of course they are. And to say that they aren't is foolish. That's just not reality. That's not the reality of the world we live in. If you're going to hold that against Pete Hegseth, hold it against everyone in every elected office ever and get rid of all of them. You would never be able to elect anyone if they're married. You just couldn't. It is silly to assume or to hold that against someone. Let's see. Grace says, Hillary was trying to implement even more socialized medicine when she was first lady. The plan was such a mess, she had to back down. Yeah, and she had access to private information. She was not elected. She was the first lady, and she had access to secret information. And according to AMP, well, that's a problem. So let's see, AMP goes, okay, so only non-married people can run the government. According to you, AMP, yes. According to me, that's not a problem. You, AMP, are the one who is putting this restriction on them. Can you live with that? I can't. I think that's repressive. I think what you're suggesting, AMP, is repressive and unrealistic. So I disagree with you. Now, you can tell me, Mike, but Mike, I don't agree. Okay. You're a human being. You're an American citizen, I assume. You have a right to disagree. You have a right to your own opinion. But I have to say that the opinion that you have just displayed to everyone is childish. And I don't mean that as a negative to you, but I mean, it's a child's expectation of the world that, I have a secret and no one ever is going to know. You have a wife, you have a spouse, you're going to talk to them. Yeah, they're going to know. That's just reality. And to deny that is to be unrealistic and silly. It's just silly to say, oh, no, that's not real. You're silly. You want to have an argument about Pete Hegseth? The argument isn't, oh, well, he told his wife something. Really? That's weak. That's really insanely weak. Let's see. What is this? Assuming that all spouses can't keep non-marital secrets doesn't seem right. I'm not saying that spouses can't keep secrets. In fact, that spouses do keep secrets on a regular basis. I'm saying all the spouses keep the secrets, and that's why no one cares. That's why it's understood. That's the reality of the world. Spouses keep secrets. That's why you have a spouse, because you trust them intimately with everything. That's why they're your spouse. That's why you trust them. And that's why when we elect someone who has a spouse, we also transfer part of our trust to that spouse, like Joe Biden as an example, or Michelle Obama as an example, or Hillary Clinton as an example. The argument you're making, Amp, is childish. And I think if you reflect on it, you will see that. It's a child's argument. But let me move forward. But I will thank you, Amp, for sharing that. I disagree with it. I do think it's childish. I do think it's a child's argument. But I thank you for sharing your thought, because maybe everyone, I could be wrong, everyone who's viewing this, everyone in the audience may think I'm completely wrong and go, Mike, no, you're wrong. I could be on the wrong side of this. I don't think I am. I don't think there's anyone else except you, Amp. I think it's politically motivated. I think you want Trump to fail. So you want Pete Hegseth to fail. And so you'll accept anything that leads to that conclusion. So every path, and by any means necessary, you're happy to get to Trump is orange man bad, orange man fail. That's what it sounds like to me. You're willing to accept anything to get to that outcome. I won't. Amp, I have been in the military. You may not be aware of that. And my family has been in the military. Many of my friends are former military. I know many people who have been married and in the military. Yeah, I do know about military spouses. So again, that goes to my point, but not yours. So yeah, I do know military spouses. I know people who have been married many years in the military. Yeah, you're talking to a Marine. My father was a Marine. My friends are Marines. My family has many military. We've got members of the Army and the Navy in my family, very close to me. So yeah, that's not an argument. But anyway. But again, I thank you for asking the question. I thank you for giving me your argument. I don't think it's a valid argument, and that's okay. And you may disagree with my conclusion. That's fine too. But I've explained why I think what I think. I think you've also explained what you think. Whatever I may or may not have. I love this. Did you blab any kind of classified documents? Like I would tell you. Like I would actually answer that question. Really? Seriously? That's a dumb thing to ask someone. But anyway. Just insane that you would even ask that question. But anyway. But I thank people for being involved. Okay. So hopefully, if you've gotten this far, because we're going to be ending this. Normally on a Wednesday, we have a panel discussion. We have a conversation with the Liberty First Foundation Dal and some of the other members, Dal and Frank Johnson and Mike, God, I can't think of anyone's names right now. And Jan, they're normally here with us doing a panel discussion on the various constitutional issues that face America. And I love having that conversation. We've been doing this for years. They're going to be at the NRA convention tomorrow. There will be coverage tomorrow from the NRA convention and some interviews, and I may be joining some of those interviews of various individuals at the NRA remotely. So please look forward to that. Please consider like, share, or subscribe. We appreciate that. It matters. I thank you for that. And we'll try and give you more and more. I'll try and give you more and more coverage as we go forward. I thank everyone. Oh, what did you say? Grace is a military spouse, a combat vet, a Marine. That is a whole other conversation. I agree. I completely agree with you, Grace. I get it. AMP may not. I do get it. But fair enough. I'm not trying to change AMP's mind. I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there. But, there we go. So we're going to have more coverage coming from the NRA later this week. And next week, of course, we'll have the regular roundtable panel discussion. Sunday, I will have my normal Sunday live stream. And that's a little bit different as well. And I'll be more prepped. And but I thank you for spending time with me today as I was working through a new system. And I hope it looked good, sounded well. Please let me know that in the comments after the show. Let me know if you were able to hear it well, if you were able to see it well. Do you prefer the way the format was coming across on this platform or the way that I normally do it? Let me know. I'll try and work it out. But other than that, folks, I want to thank you. I hope you're going to have a great sleep well and look forward to our coverage of the NRA convention. And I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. Please like, share, and subscribe. It is the lifeblood of what we do. It keeps us able to do what we do. And I will talk to you again very, very soon. Thank you, everyone.